Hey guys, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn 101. This episode, another highly requested one, is about crafting. This one's actually about how to craft and how the crafting system actually works while you're using it. It's not just going to be about abilities, it's going to be about the menus, it's going to be about how to successfully finish a synthesis, a little bit about how to level up, and how to maximize the effectiveness of your time when crafting. So let's just jump right into this. The first thing I need to talk about is the menu. Now, the menu isn't that complicated, but there's a lot of stuff on there that you definitely need to pay attention to. Some of the stuff is pretty much given. You have classes and the recipe levels. That pretty much goes without saying. One is showing you the class that you're on, and the other one is showing you the different levels of the recipes, the level ranges. And then you have the actual recipes themselves, which also have a level next to them, what level the recipe itself is. When you select one, however, you get to things that are a little bit more complicated that definitely I can see why they need explaining a little bit. First, it shows you something called durability, which we're going to get into a little bit later since it goes with our whole how to craft thing. The next thing is difficulty. Now, difficulty is not only based on your level, but it's based on the overall complicated efforts that will go into the synth. For example, if you're just making a piece of lumber, the difficulty is going to be really low. However, if you're making a sword, difficulty is going to be a lot higher. The reason being is that there's a lot more materials that go in, there's a lot more efforts that need to be handled, and this actually affects how you go about your synth, what's the most effective way to go about it. But again, we'll get into that in a little bit. Then you have the quality. Now, this we'll get into in about I don't know, 20 more seconds, so don't worry, I'll come back to this quality one. Next you have is the cost. Now the first one is a shard or crystal cost. This is actually the elemental shards and crystals that you collect from gathering. You can collect them from quests as well, and there are some monsters in the game that reward these shards. However, for the most part, you will obtain these shards through gathering classes. So if you don't have a gathering class, I recommend you go level 1. It's very easy to get these shards if you have one. So don't worry, they're not extremely hard to come by. You can also buy them from the auction house or the market board, which I will get to in a later episode. And then finally, you have materials. This just tells you how many of each material you need and how many you have. As you can see, there's also NQ and HQ, normal quality and high quality. You can use high quality materials in a craft. This gives them a few bonuses. This gives them a higher quality, which makes it much easier to get a better synth. Again, we'll get into that a little bit when I cover quality and I cover progress, but there's not much more else here to really talk about. In the very bottom, you do have characteristics and bonuses. Characteristics is where, in case you watched my previous video, you'll find things like wind affinity and earth affinity, so you can use certain abilities for that synth as opposed to not using other abilities such as brand of wind when something has wind affinity and brand of earth when something has earth affinity. Bonuses, I haven't seen a single synth from levels 1 through 35 on my carpenter that has a bonus, but you can just assume that it will, give you a bonus. There's not much more else I can really say about that. So let's move on. Let's move on actually how to craft. Now, crafting is it's not complicated, but there's a lot that goes on that most crafters won't be used to. Most crafters are used to pressing a button and the synthesis just happens, and there's nothing they do about it. There's no way to fail. They just need to be a certain level. This is a little bit more involved without being too complicated. So you have right here a synthesis of ash lumber. I was hovered over it before. I took my materials when I entered this menu, and now we come to this menu. So on this menu, we have durability, we have condition, we have progress, quality, HQ, and we have what step we're on. I'm going to cover this one by one, so don't worry too much. Durability is essentially how many turns you have in a sense. Every action costs 10 durability unless stated otherwise, and there are certain abilities that re-raise your durability mid-synth, and depending on the synth you will usually have more or less durability to work with. So don't worry, this number isn't static. You don't always have 40. There are different ways to change it, different synthesis that have it. So don't worry, but it'll go down every single turn unless stated otherwise. Condition normal, this actually means the condition that your synth is in. For example, if you mess up too many times, the condition might become unfavorable, or if you're successful multiple times, it may become extremely favorable. I believe it can also indicate when you're more likely to get a high quality synth. But that's just me. I haven't actually been able to get the condition to change under any of my synths, but I can keep trying for that purpose. Next you have at the very top right, you have step. This is actually how many turns you've spent on your synth. Luckily, turns go extremely quickly. Each turn minus the thought process actually only takes about, I don't know, maybe 3 to 4 seconds. When you're leveling, it takes less than a second really to decide how you want to do this, because under most circumstances, you'll just try to finish the synth. So we have the final three things, which are pretty interesting. You have progress, quality, and HQ. As you can see, each of these has a number associated with them on the right, and as you can see, the progress is directly linked to the difficulty that we spoke about before. So difficulty essentially measures progress. If something's more difficult, it takes more progress to complete. Quality also matters. If you can fill up that bar more, it will increase the odds of getting your high quality synth. But let's go into that a little bit more after I discuss a few things that you need before you go any further, really. So you have two abilities that you'll get from levels 1 and 5. You have basic synthesis and basic touch. Sorry about that. And these are your two most basic abilities. Basic synthesis basically lets you synth. It increases your progress until you complete the item, upon which time you will be done with the synth and you'll gather the item with whatever stats it had. Basic touch, on the other hand, is level 5. Every class has this, and it allows you to increase the quality of your synth. This allows you to get better yields out of your synth, which usually mean better materials and better weapons, better items. Altogether, it's something that you probably won't worry about too much until you're much later on and you're trying to not only gain money, but you're just trying to get high quality stuff to give to your friends or to use for yourself. And as you can see, basic touch also costs something called CP. CP is crafting points. Crafting points are basically your mana. They are your TP. They are your resource for crafting. It goes back to full at the end of every synth, so don't feel like you need to save it for future synths. But keep it in mind when you're synthing. Some abilities cost a ridiculous amount of CP, but don't worry, this can be raised with gear as well as levels. So now that you have all that out of the way, let's get back to the progress and quality bar. Let's cover progress first. Upon using basic synthesis, you will gain progress on your progress bar. This is more directly related with some of the stats that I talked about in one of my earlier videos. Don't worry, I'll include a link to that. When you complete the progress bar using your synthesis abilities, you have completed it. Once it's full out, it's for example, with this, it's 20 out of 20. It says you synthesize a length of ash lumber. Proof of completion recorded in your crafting log. Now, the crafting log I showed you earlier, you actually get bonus experience for the first time you successfully craft something. So think of it it's very much the same as your hunting log. Your hunting log, when you first complete the bonuses in there, you get a giant boost of experience. Here, every time you complete a synthesis for the first time, you will also get a bonus. So keep that in mind while leveling, that doing each synth at least once has some sort of benefit for leveling up. Unless you're trying to find the cheapest route, then that probably wouldn't help at all if you're trying to find the absolute cheapest route in order to get to a max level craft. Once progress is really good for leveling up, but there are some points where you're going to want to worry about quality. Now, quality does a lot of things for a synth. As you can see here, I've risen it to 215 out of 629. Now, the first third or so of the quality bar doesn't affect the quality of the gear too much. You really need to get it into the second thirds, like the middle third and the final third, in order for it to really kick off. But as you can see here, as my quality went up, my chance of getting a high quality synth has increased. And as you complete that bar, you'll get towards the end where it'll be 99 or 100%, and you'll, almost most definitely get a high quality synth. But that's not all quality does. Quality also increases the amount of experience yield that your synth actually gets. So if you can finish progress in one turn with your basic synthesis and you want to try and get some high quality so you can get some bonus experience, that might take a little bit more time in terms of leveling up. However, it's a matter of balancing the two. Most people who want to level up a synth will simply just try to complete the progress bar as best as possible, but you do get a lot of bonus experience when you increase the quality. So some of you out there might opt for the route of spending less money and raising your quality more on each synth in order to maximize how much experience you get per gil. There's a lot of different ways to go about leveling. I am personally an extremely lazy person to level, but at the same time, I like to get my quality up there if I can. But it's really up to you based on your gear and how patient you are with the system. You really need to look at it from a very it's not as simple as crafting is in most classes, is what I'm trying to say. You really need to sit down and understand it for a little bit in order to become a super successful crafter. This also means that you can completely play this game as a crafter if you want, because the system is so involved. It does take quite a bit of thinking when you're trying to do more advanced synthesis, especially when you hit level 50, when you're really trying to get those high quality synths. It does take a lot more patience and mathematics and things like that. It's a very involved crafting system, and those of you out there who like crafting in games will definitely enjoy crafting in Final Fantasy XIV. I hope this video was useful to you guys. It's been a highly requested one, and I really wanted to just do it and get it out of the way, since I've already done 2 other crafting videos at this point. So if this video was useful to you, please like, favorite, subscribe, and share, especially if you have a friend who's been asking you how crafting works in this game. It's pretty simple, but you know, you definitely have to understand it and go forward with a positive attitude if you want to be successful at it. Also, check out my Facebook at www.facebook.com/MrHappy1227. If you go there, you can find out about all sorts of things, such as giveaways that I'll be doing. You can find screenshots, you can find information, and you can find just a generally nice community of Final Fantasy players to commune with. So anyway, guys, thank you for watching, and stay tuned for my next episode. I'm going to be giving you guys something that you really wanted, my first ever dungeon walkthrough. See you guys. Take care.